In Italy, there's this one family that controls Ferrari, Jeep, Chrysler, Maserati, and The Economist. They also own a soccer team worth over $2 billion, and they control Italy's largest bank. The Agnellis have more power than most governments do. They control 30% of Italy's stock market, employing over 360,000 people worldwide, but most people have never heard their name. Welcome to Macro Central, where we connect the dots of the global economy. Today we're pulling back the curtain on one of Europe's most powerful dynasties, a family that shaped Italy's economy for over a century, survived fascism, world wars, and economic collapse, yet remains virtually unknown outside their home country. They're not just Italy's version of the Rockefellers. The Agnellis literally decide whether Italy's economy grows or crashes. When their companies sneeze, the entire Italian stock market catches a cold. Here's what makes their story fascinating. They got this power by playing every side imaginable. Fascists, communists, allies, socialists. Whoever was winning, the Agnellis aligned themselves with power while protecting their empire. This isn't about old money fading into irrelevance. This is about a dynasty more powerful today than ever before. They've evolved from building cars in Turin to controlling global media narratives, shaping European policy, and owning pieces of the world's most influential companies. Section 1. The Foundation. In Italy, power flows through bloodlines. The country has always been ruled by elite families who control industry, finance, and influence. You have the Benettons dominating infrastructure. The Pirellis built their fortune on tyres. The Berlusconis controlled media and politics for decades. But none can match the Agnellis. Everything begins with Fiat. This wasn't just a car manufacturer, it became Italy's economic heartbeat. At the family's peak under Giovanni Agnelli in the 1980s and 90s, their companies alone were responsible for nearly 8% of Italy's entire GDP. One family's empire accounted for almost 1/10 of everything Italy produced. Government policies moved in perfect synchronization with Fiat's interests. When Fiat needed favorable labor laws, they appeared. When Fiat needed subsidies, the government provided them. But before the Agnellis became the face of Italian capitalism, they were just a small family in Turin with one audacious idea: to build cars for a country that barely had roads. Section 2. The Birth. The year was 1899. Italy had only been unified for less than 40 years. The north was industrializing, but much of the country remained rural and poor. Giovanni Agnelli was a man with military background and extraordinary talent for spotting opportunities. In 1899, he founded Fabbrica Italiana Automobili Torino, Fiat. By 1900, the first factory opened with 35 workers. That first year, they built exactly 24 cars. In 1900, this was revolutionary. There were no paved roads for automobiles, no market of customers, no mechanics, no gas stations, no infrastructure whatsoever. Giovanni was creating an entire industry from nothing. The growth was explosive. By 1904, production increased fivefold. By 1906, Fiat manufactured over 1,000 cars annually. He opened a dealership in New York City before most Italians even owned a car. Giovanni systematically bought up critical patents and introduced modern production methods that put Fiat years ahead of competitors. But success rarely comes without complications. Section 3. The First Crisis. In 1908, Fiat faced its first existential threat. A major financial scandal rocked the company, with rumors of falsified accounts and inflated share prices. Investors panicked. The stock collapsed. The entire board resigned. Giovanni was dragged into court, accused of stock manipulation. If convicted, he would lose everything. The prosecutors couldn't prove their case. Giovanni walked free, acquitted. But the scandal left deep scars. His reputation was damaged. Trust was shaken. That brush with disaster fundamentally changed Giovanni Agnelli. He became more strategic, more calculated. He learned that survival requires ruthless pragmatism. So when World War I broke out, Giovanni didn't hesitate. He saw an opportunity to rebuild Fiat's reputation by tying it directly to Italy's national interest. Section 4. War and Profit. When World War I erupted in 1914, Giovanni moved decisively. Fiat's factories shifted overnight into wartime production. Military vehicles, trucks, tanks, airplanes, diesel engines. The factories ran around the clock. By the war's peak, Fiat employed over 30,000 workers. The profits were staggering. But critics accused Fiat of war profiteering. Giovanni needed political cover. He turned to a rising figure who would change Italian history: Benito Mussolini. In 1914, Mussolini was a firebrand journalist preaching Italian nationalism. Giovanni funded Mussolini's political movement, a calculated investment in protection. The investment paid off. When Fiat came under fire for wartime profits, Mussolini defended the company, praising Fiat as a national champion and attacking critics as unpatriotic. This alliance between the Agnellis and Mussolini would define Italian politics for 3 decades. Section 5. The Fascist Partnership. By the late 1930s, the partnership with Mussolini's fascist regime was deeply entrenched. Fiat employed over 50,000 workers and dominated Italy's manufacturing. When World War II erupted, those assembly lines shifted to military manufacturing. Fiat built tanks, trucks, and aircraft engines for Mussolini's army and Nazi Germany. But as the war turned, Gianni saw which way history was moving. He began distancing himself from Mussolini, expressing sympathy for the Allies, positioning Fiat as a victim rather than collaborator. When the war ended in 1945, authorities temporarily seized Agnelli's assets for fascist collaboration. But Fiat was too important to dismantle. The country needed jobs and industrial production. Within months, assets were returned. Gianni retained control. Fiat emerged damaged but intact. That survival opened the door for a new generation. Section 6. The Golden Age. After the war, Giovanni's grandson, Gianni Agnelli, took charge. By 1966, he was chairman and CEO, arguably the most powerful industrialist in Western Europe. Gianni helped drag Italy from war ruins into the modern industrial age. He expanded Fiat aggressively, modernized production, and turned Fiat into a global brand. But what set Gianni apart was his willingness to cross ideological boundaries. During the Cold War, most Western leaders refused business with the Soviet Union. Gianni didn't care about ideology. He cared about profit and power. He partnered directly with the Soviet Union, building a massive factory in Russia, capable of producing over 500,000 cars annually. The deal shocked the Western world but proved enormously profitable. That mindset took Fiat global, from Moscow to Sao Paulo, Poland to Argentina. But Gianni wasn't satisfied with just building cars. He wanted to own Italy's automotive soul. He systematically acquired Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Lancia, and Maserati. By his final years, Fiat employed over 200,000 people. 1 in every 5 Italians in manufacturing had some connection to Fiat. Entire towns revolved around Fiat's production lines. Section 7. The French Ambition. In the 1960s, Gianni set his sights on Citroën, Europe's second largest automaker. Acquiring it would make Fiat the undisputed king of European automotive. Gianni personally led negotiations with the Michelin family, who owned Citroën. The deal seemed ready to close, but French President Charles de Gaulle personally blocked it. He feared Italian control over a French national icon. Despite all of Gianni's charm and connections, he couldn't overcome a presidential veto. Fiat settled for a minority 15% stake, a humiliating defeat. The Citroën setback taught Gianni a crucial lesson. Economic power has limits. You can own factories and employ hundreds of thousands, but still lose to a single political decision. The Agnellis began understanding that controlling narratives, what people read and believe, mattered as much as controlling factories. Section 8. Media Empire. Gianni once owned La Stampa, Turin's major newspaper, but his grandson, John Elkann, would take the family's media strategy global. The pivotal moment came when Exor, the Agnelli holding company, acquired 43.7% of GDE, Italy's largest media group, for over €102 million. The portfolio was massive. La Repubblica, Italy's second largest daily, La Stampa, 13 regional newspapers, and Radio DJ. This gave the Agnellis unprecedented ability to shape Italian public opinion. Which stories received coverage, which narratives gained traction, which voices were amplified. But they didn't stop at Italian media. In 2015, Exor acquired 43.4% of The Economist Group. The Economist isn't just a magazine, it's an institution shaping elite opinion worldwide. Its reporting influences investors, policymakers, and business leaders globally. By acquiring a controlling stake, the Agnellis gained a platform to project their perspective far beyond Italy's borders. This is the same playbook used by powerful families throughout history. Media holdings allow them to influence public perception, shape political narratives, and protect business interests from hostile coverage. Section 9. European power. But media was just one dimension. The Agnellis were also positioning themselves at the heart of European political power. In 1983, Giovanni Agnelli helped create the European Roundtable of Industrialists, an elite lobbying group linking corporate power to Brussels decision makers. The ERT brings together CEOs from Europe's largest corporations. These aren't just business meetings, they're policy-shaping sessions where corporate leaders draft proposals that often become EU legislation. In 2016, Exor moved its legal headquarters from Italy to the Netherlands. Officially, this was about simpler corporate structure. Practically, it meant fewer restrictions and flexibility to operate as a truly global business. By 2024, that global reach was undeniable. Exor owned 10.1% of Clarivate, a data and analytics company providing critical information to universities, corporations, and governments worldwide. In an age where data shapes everything, the Agnellis positioned themselves at the center of the information economy. They have access to data that guides investment flows and research priorities before it becomes public knowledge. Section 10. Strategic investments. The Agnellis' investment strategy reveals sophisticated understanding of where power and profit intersect. They hold stakes across health, technology, energy, and industrial sectors. This diversification gives them leverage in Europe's most sensitive policy debates. When European regulators debate data privacy laws, the Agnellis have a stake through Clarivate. When governments fund green energy, the Agnellis' portfolio benefits. When new industrial policies are crafted in Brussels, the Agnellis are positioned to profit. Through Exor, they control Stellantis, one of the world's largest automotive groups formed by merging Fiat Chrysler and PSA Group. Stellantis owns Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Chrysler, Peugeot, Citroën, Opel, and Fiat. A global empire employing hundreds of thousands, and they maintain their crown jewel, Ferrari. Through Exor and partnership with Piero Ferrari, the family controls 48.1% of voting rights. Section 11. Cultural dominance. Perhaps the Agnellis' most brilliant move was understanding that true power is built on emotion, identity, and culture. Their entry into cultural influence began in 1923 when Edoardo Agnelli became president of Juventus Football Club. Football in Italy isn't entertainment, it's religion. It unites the country from north to south, rich to poor. By controlling Juventus, one of Italy's most successful clubs, the Agnellis positioned themselves at the centre of Italian passion. Each generation maintained this connection. Every trophy Juventus won reinforced the family's authority. Juventus has won more Italian championships than any other club. In 1969, Fiat bought 50% of Ferrari, giving the Agnellis influence over both working class, Fiat, and elite, Ferrari. Fiat represented mobility for ordinary Italians. Ferrari represented luxury and aspiration, the ultimate symbol of Italian engineering. By 1988, Fiat acquired 90% of Ferrari. When Ferrari went public decades later, it proved that real power still rested with the Agnellis. Ferrari transcended being a car brand. It represented prestige, perfection, and Italian excellence. That halo extended directly to the Agnelli family. Section 12. The modern dynasty. Today, John Elkann leads the empire. As chairman of Exor, he controls a €40 billion empire, stretching from Milan to Amsterdam to New York. But the real power isn't just the money, it's the access, relationships, and ability to shape decisions before they become public. Elkann moves through Europe's elite circles with ease. Business roundtables, think tanks, foundations, these are spaces where CEOs, politicians, and regulators discuss policy long before it becomes law. Through these circles, the Agnellis help shape EU policy on green technology, mobility standards, and industrial competitiveness. They don't lobby publicly. Their influence operates through quiet conversations. The Agnellis have mastered turning a national legacy into continental power. From Turin to Brussels, their influence extends far beyond cars and sports. Section 13. The power structure. How does one family maintain this control across so many sectors? The answer lies in Exor's structure as a holding company. This provides key advantages. First, it allows the family to maintain control with less than full ownership. Through structured voting rights, the Agnellis control companies while owning minority stakes. This multiplies their effective power. Second, it provides flexibility. Exor can buy and sell stakes, enter and exit industries, and reallocate capital without operating company constraints. Third, it creates distance. When Exor-controlled companies make controversial decisions, the family maintains plausible deniability. They're shareholders, not managers. This structure is common among Europe's most powerful families, the Wallenbergs in Sweden, the Quants in Germany, the Wendells in France. It's a proven model for turning wealth into lasting power. Section 14. The financial empire. Beyond manufacturing and media, the Agnellis have built a sophisticated financial empire that amplifies their influence across multiple sectors. Their holdings in financial services give them unique insight into capital flows and investment trends before they become public knowledge. This isn't just about making money, it's about understanding where the economy is heading and positioning themselves accordingly. The family's relationship with Italy's banking sector has been particularly strategic. Through various investments and board positions, they've maintained influence over credit allocation and financial policy. When Italian banks decide which industries to support with loans, the Agnellis interests are never far from consideration. But perhaps most importantly, the Agnellis have mastered the art of using other people's money to expand their empire. Through Exor's public listing, they've attracted billions in outside capital while maintaining voting control. This allows them to make massive acquisitions and investments without diluting their power. The 2021 merger that created Stellantis is a perfect example. By combining Fiat Chrysler with France's PSA Group, they created the world's fourth largest automaker with annual revenues exceeding 150 billion euros. The Agnellis contributed their existing stake in Fiat Chrysler, but emerged with control over a much larger empire. This financial engineering, using leverage, structured voting rights and strategic partnerships, is how old money stays powerful in the modern era. The Agnellis don't just inherit wealth, they actively multiply it through sophisticated financial structures that most people never see or understand. Section 15. The succession strategy. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Agnelli dynasty is how they've managed succession across 5 generations without losing control or fragmenting the empire. Many wealthy families fall apart by the 3rd generation. Inheritances get divided, heirs fight over control. The empire crumbles, but not the Agnellis. Their secret lies in a carefully structured succession plan that prioritizes unity and continuity over individual wealth. The family operates through a complex web of holding companies, trusts and foundations that ensure control remains concentrated even as ownership spreads across multiple heirs. John Elkann's rise to power exemplifies this strategy. Born in 1976, he was groomed from childhood to lead the family empire. His grandfather Gianni personally mentored him, teaching him not just business but the art of wielding power discreetly. When Gianni died in 2003, followed by his brother Umberto in 2004, the transition was seamless. John was only 28 years old, but the structures were already in place. He became vice chairman of Fiat at 21, chairman at 36, and has since expanded the empire far beyond what his grandfather could have imagined. The family has also been strategic about marriages and alliances. John's mother, Margherita Agnelli, married into European aristocracy. These connections aren't just social, they provide access to political and financial networks across the continent. But perhaps most importantly, the Agnellis have instilled a sense of duty and legacy in each generation. This isn't just about personal wealth, it's about maintaining the family's position as Italy's most powerful dynasty. That sense of purpose keeps the family united even when individual interests might diverge. Section 16. The implications. The Agnelli story raises fundamental questions about how power works in modern democracies. On paper, Italy is a democratic republic, but in practice, a small number of families wield enormous influence over economic decisions affecting millions. When the Agnellis close a factory, thousands lose jobs. When they invest in a region, it prospers. When their media outlets emphasize narratives, public opinion shifts. This isn't unique to Italy. Every developed economy has powerful families shaping policy behind the scenes. But the Agnellis represent an extreme example of how concentrated that power can become. They've survived monarchies, fascism, world wars, and economic crises. They've outlasted countless governments. The question is this a feature of European capitalism or a bug? Do these families provide stability and long-term thinking? Or do they represent undemocratic concentration of power? There's no easy answer, but understanding how families like the Agnellis operate is essential to understanding how modern economies actually function. Closing sequence. The Agnellis have evolved from building cars in Turin to shaping information flows, policy decisions, and market dynamics across Europe and beyond. They've outlasted monarchies, dictators, and countless political shifts without ever holding public office. They've mastered turning industrial success into cultural influence and cultural influence into political power. They've shown that controlling what people read and believe can be as valuable as controlling what they drive. So here's my question for you. Is Europe really built on democracy and free markets? Or is it still fundamentally shaped by dynasties that never really left? Families that learn to adapt their power to each new era while maintaining control across generations? Share your analysis in the comments below. Thanks for joining us on Macro Central. If you want to keep connecting the dots on the biggest economic stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We'll see you in the next one. Remember, when it comes to your money and your economy, knowledge is power.